everyone. It's 7 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Would you please stand and join me in the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from August 21st, please?
I move that we approve the minutes from August 21st, was it?
Yep.
Subject to corrections.
Thanks, George. Second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. I take your pick. Any corrections? Any changes? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes from August 21st, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Public input and announcements? Hearing none, we will move on to committee reports, negotiations. Adrian?
I have nothing.
Nothing
to
there.
report. I mean, yeah, I have nothing to report.
Okay, Len,
Hi.
you're up.
Personnel Committee met this evening, and we have several things that we need to go over. First of all, I would like to take a moment to remember Kathy Morse, who worked in the accounts payable in the supervisory office, retired in June, and just passed away about 2 weeks ago, David. So I'd like to keep her in your prayers and in your hearts, please, and her family as well. Thank you. Okay, that one's done. I'd like to make a motion to approve a contract for Heather Bathalon as a 1.0 full-time equivalency support staff, special education paraeducator. And I believe she'll be split between,
I believe at the moment, and Heather's with us, I think some Wallingford, some Shrewsbury. Is that what we are right now, Heather?
We're gonna ask her.
Wallingford right now, okay.
okay. So I'd make that motion to approve a contract for
Second.
Heather?
Great, thank you, George. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the contract for Heather, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, congratulations and welcome, Heather.
Okay, next, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Mill River Union activity stipend list that we tabled at the last meeting, and we'll follow up with some more information on that in just a minute. But I want to make that motion that we approve that stipend list.
Is there a
Second.
second? Thank you. And discussion?
Yes. We put it on hold last meeting because in the contract, there should be a stipend committee that meets to go over the stipends. And David, I'll turn it over to you to let folks know where we're at this point.
Yeah, so as Len mentioned, the master agreement calls for a stipend committee consisting of 2 administrators and 2 teachers to review the stipends that are issued and establish kind of a common framework around that. So I've had some preliminary meetings with Tyler and Brian, who are representing the administration with that group. We are waiting to see who the teacher representatives will be for that process. So once we know that, that group will get together and we'll get started with the work of identifying a structure. You know, what does pay look like? What do job descriptions look like? How do we identify time commitments, verify that work is done, et cetera, to make sure things are moving forward? That process will result in the union president and I bringing something to the board personnel committee for review, and also taking that to the union leadership group for review. And then hopefully after that point in time, we'll have something that's pretty solid that we can build future stipend plans based upon, and may even negotiate into a master agreement, you know, as that process unfolds. So to be continued.
But it's important that we approve this stipend list without any adjustment, just in fairness to those folks who are on the list at this time. So that's my motion.
Okay, and there was a second, and we've had our discussion. Any other comments, discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the Mill River High, it's the high school, right, stipend list?
Yes.
as been provided to us, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay.
Next is, I'd like to make a motion to approve, and there'll be more information on this as we move along, to approve a posting for 1.0 Clarendon Elementary School teacher, full-time equivalency, to allow us to post for that position.
I will second.
Okay,
Thank you,
discussion. Do you want to explain?
Sure. So, in working with Fred, just managing some class sizes and some late registrants at Clarendon, we're at a position where we need to take the fourth grade class and essentially split that, hire another teacher so that we can split a large class into two classes that are not quite as large. I worked with Stan, and Stan has identified some options that the board has in terms of funding that position, because this is obviously an unbudgeted position that we weren't planning on. So I reviewed those options with the Personnel Committee, and the Personnel Committee recommended that the decision on funding sources should be made by the Finance Committee. So, Andy, throwing you on the spot here.
Yes,
but
you are.
I'm would like to propose to the Finance Committee, our next meeting is September 18th, 2 weeks from now. Would like to propose if we could maybe get that group together before the board meeting, say at 6:30 or so. Give folks a chance to review the options, and then the committee could have some discussion and be able to make a recommendation to the board just about the funding for this new position, how to approach that. Sound reasonable?
Sounds reasonable, yes, sir.
All righty.
Okay, so that discussion will take place in terms of the funding, will take place at a later date, but we still need to approve the posting.
Okay, is there any other discussion with regard to that motion that's pending? Okay, all those in favor of approving the posting of a position for a 1.0 FTE teaching position at Clarendon Elementary School, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions?
Okay? Then would like to congratulate Brian Hill, who has successfully completed his licensure as superintendent. So congratulations. And as a result of that licensure change, Brian's title will be changing to assistant superintendent. So again, I believe congratulations are in order. Nicely done. Okay, I think that's it. And we'll have, the next Personnel Committee meeting will be October 2nd here at 6 PM. Did I forget anything?
I think you got it all. And I'm glad once again that you're doing it. Thank you. Policy, George.
Yep, I'm here. More or less, or less and more. Good evening, everyone. We had a meeting of the Policy Committee last night. Great deal of discussion. In fact, I think we went overtime a little bit. And I'll give you a little thumbnail sketch of some of the things that we talked about. I think before I forget, our next meeting should be like October 1, I believe. Does that sound about right? 'Cause-
Yes.
Yeah, October 1. And we'll be here, and it'll be in our usual meeting room. Okay, as far as last night's discussion, I guess the first thing I want to talk about is I mentioned that I might have some days that I'll be missing in the future, and that it would be good if we had somebody that would assist in the chairmanship of the Policy Committee. And we had a volunteer that stepped forward to assist with that and become a vice chair of the Policy Committee. And Liz, congratulations and thank you.
Thank you.
So that's the first important piece. We had a discussion on, we still have some policies kind of hanging in the breeze. One of them was F7, which is the policy that dealt with student alcohol and drugs. And the other one was F14, which is the admission of non-resident students. There were some issues in both those policies that had some legal implications that we have out for review by our attorney, having to deal in some large part with financing and also with some discipline actions. So we're hoping to hear back soon as to those questions, and hopefully we'll be bringing something to your attention again on these two policies in the near future. The next thing that, well, I'm going to skip a bit. We talked about G11, which is use of internet and electronic devices, and what I learned last night was that Brian thought that the policy as it is in its draft form was suitable for our needs, with lacking one insertion of material from one of those incredible board members over there, Mr. BJ. And so I was assured by the superintendent that he would get right on that problem. So, thank you, BJ. And hopefully we'll have something on G11 for our next board meeting.
You got it.
Now, we spent a lot of time talking about two upcoming policy needs. In fact, the two policies have some things in common. And the things in common that they have are, I think both policies are going to take a fairly lengthy time to work on, and it will require some research, some talking to some experts, maybe some testimony from some people, and try to come up with a policy that will work for everybody in the building as well as the parents and community as a whole. And one of the things that when you're constructing a policy is to kind of work to the notion of you can't have one size fit all. That's one of the things. You also need to not have the policy so rigid or stringent that the folks in the buildings, administrators and teachers and staff, have no room to use good sound judgment in some cases. So these two policies have a great many elements. The first one is the policy on food allergies. And so we're going to have to spend a great deal of time to make sure that we cover the elements and that are under that category and try to make it work in many respects. One of the things that came up for discussion last night is, do we need to be concerned about the young man in 3rd or 2nd grade or whatever, had toast that morning with peanut butter on it, came to school, probably didn't wash his hands overly well? Is that going to be a concern? So those are the kinds of things that we need to take into consideration in a global way. The other policy was on equity, and we've had, as many of you, most of you should know, we've had a committee working on equity for some time now. And we kind of have a working definition, I guess you would say, on equity. And there again, it's going to take a great deal of effort to pull together something that encompasses everything dealing with equity. I would guess if we asked everybody in this room what would be the most important element of equity, that we'd get a bunch of different answers. And I would bet if we asked each person to make a list of the things that should be considered under equity, there would be quite a few variables there. In fact, we were just talking about one briefly in terms of educational equity, in terms of how many students in a classroom. And as you think about equity in an educational standpoint, you know, it may be necessary to think about sometimes there'll be needs for more resources in one area than another. So there will be a little bit more, I think, on the equity discussion later in this agenda. So that's kind of a quick update on what we discussed and what we'll be working on for the next few sessions. And some of you folks that have been involved in equity will be calling on you for some help, and some of those folks that have a concern about food allergies. In fact, the discussion started with our new board member who suggested we needed to bring this to the front, and that was Amy. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, I am done.
Thank you, George. John is not here for Buildings and Grounds.
Fortunately, I couldn't stay last night, so I can't help, so we'll have to
Sure.
look to Gary.
Thank
We
you.
had a very nice
Oh,
update of all the projects that had been done, and even got to take a tour of this building to see what the changes were. We got up on the roof and saw the new solar array. It was fascinating. It was a great Buildings and Grounds meeting.
Excellent. Thank you.
Great.
Yes, there was also good news from Clarington, where the fuel tank has been excavated and the soil samples have come back, and all of them are negative for any contamination.
Excellent. Excellent.
Good. And since you're already speaking, Andy, we'll let you do the numbers if you
Okay,
like.
the numbers, yes. I'll give you the numbers, but they're not going to be broken down into categories as previously, because Power School, which is the new financial software, is not providing them right now.
Oh.
And so this is dated September 4th, and I believe it's from the general fund, and it's for a total of $210,803.77. And I have a pay order that's also dated September 4th, 2019, and this is related to the bond. And it is, I can see why, $3,377,901.14. That's self-explanatory. This just says general fund, September 4th, 2019, for a total of $28,903.11. This appears to be for the food. September 4th, 2019, total of $1,329.32. We move on to payroll. I have one payroll dated August 30th, 2019, $451,441.56. I move the pay orders and payroll be approved as read.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion?
I reviewed, and I think Doug did as well, the pay orders and payroll. The $3 million that Andy mentioned was kind of interesting. There were two original bonds, one for the Mill River and one for Clarendon as part of that $3 million. But the balance of that, correct me if I'm wrong, Stan, had to do with various performance, efficiency performance contracts of the various buildings. Is that correct?
Right, the bulk of it was the roofing
Yeah.
done at Clarendon and at the high school, and also the solar system at the high school. And then the boiler upgrades at Wallingford and Clarendon, and the biomass project that's going on here at the high school.
So I was pleased to see those items in terms of the progress obviously being made in terms of our goals and in terms of energy efficiency. Everything else that I saw seemed to be appropriate for the, Doug, anything to add?
Yeah, I like, the idea that we need to get the different wording back in so you know where they came from. But one thing I do like about the way the new one is, there's a small explanation of what any check that goes through.
Yep.
One of them scared the bejeebas out of me. Tinmouth Elementary School put out a $450 payment to a local place for snow plowing. I'm thinking, is it already snowy up there? Am I gonna need to get tires for the meeting up there? I'm not so sure. Hopefully it's just left over from last year, which we probably should get to a little quicker, I suppose, than what we did on that. But that was the only thing I saw that was a little strange.
So you were able to get the drift of it?
I did. It wasn't a snow job. It was.
Okay, yes, on that note, I will ask us to vote on the pay orders and payroll.
Don't be salty, Tammy. Don't be salty.
All those in favor of approving the pay orders and payroll as read, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Nice job.
Any abstentions? Okay,
Tammy,
thank
I'd
you.
like to talk briefly about our board meeting at the end of August, August 26th. Give everybody an update. And for anybody watching later on, we did the usual financials, and then we started talking about next year's budget 2021. Dave gave a very preliminary, I want to emphasize very preliminary. It's a starting point. Changes will be occurring, more work and research will be done. And he listed a lot of them by the goals that we have set. So, under student opportunities, we'll continue to move ahead with the Trailhead program. We're looking at space considerations, training costs, transportation. Our pre-K program is thriving. Look and see if any modifications are needed. Consider hiring a part-time pre-K coordinator to take some of the burden off our administrators who are currently overseeing it. It is a good deal of work. And district part-time art coordinator. Under the goal of student growth, he's proposing increasing our district-wide counselor and also a district-wide psychologist. For Mill River, a social emotional behavior specialist. And vaping is becoming an increasing concern, examining possible infrastructure improvements to deal with it and professional development. Under the goal of human resources, examine wellness and retention initiatives. The goal of finance and facilities, continue supporting our learning environment, seeing if any improvements need to be made, and continue with the improvements related to safety and security. David noted that next year, Black River Academy will be closed. We will be receiving some students. His conservative guess is that 40 students could be coming. That comes to about 7 students per grade at Mill River. Possible tuition or out-of-district tuition would increase by $640,000. Staffing needs would include an addition of 1 math teacher and possibly 1 PE teacher. So when we meet at the end of September, Dave administrators will have additional information, more concrete numbers, and we will be moving forward on it. Our next meeting, as we just heard, is going to be on the 18th for a half hour at 6:30, and then we'll be meeting on September 30th to conduct our usual business.
Thank you, Andy. Okay.
Time on the 30th is
4:30.
4:30, thank you.
Community engagement.
So at the last meeting that I was at, which was in July, we talked about having a district information table and a couple of board members present at the open houses at the elementary schools. And you said, come back with the dates. And I wasn't here in August, but I'm back with the dates now. And we have the dates and the times, and all of the principals seem enthusiastic about the idea, pending board approval of participation in it. So I'm bringing it back to propose that we have a table with information, mostly calendar information. We haven't talked about what the information will be, but if people have input on that, we'd like to hear it. And to ideally have a couple of board members at each one, one from that town and ideally one not from that town.
What would those, do you have those dates? So that
Yes.
you could float them past people?
Clarendon will be on September 26th from 6 to 7. Shrewsbury Mountain School will be on the same day, September 26th, from 5:30 to 7. Tinmouth will be, we're going back in time. Tinmouth will be on the 25th of September from 5 till 7, and Wallingford will be on the 17th of September from 6 till 7. And John McKenna has already offered to be at Clarendon and Tinmouth if it fits into his schedule.
And I will be at Wallingford.
I will be at Shrewsbury.
Can you send out those dates
I can.
and put me down for any place you need to fill?
I will send them out to everybody. I mean, they'll also be in the minutes.
I should be able to do Wallingford if you need me. I'll double check that, but I won't be around for those other dates.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would gladly do another one.
Is there anyone else that knows at this moment that they would be available for an?
Good chance I could do Tinmouth and the Wallingford ones. I can't do any of the Thursday ones.
Did you say Clarendon?
I can do
So the
the,
26th is a
No,
Thursday.
Shrewsbury.
Yeah, so the
Same day.
25th was one, and the 17th, possibly.
I could be at one of the ones on the 26th, whichever one I would be needed at. So I think we are, I think we're pretty good. I will send out dates and what people offered to do as a reminder.
Do you want to do it in a Google spreadsheet so that people can fill in names?
Let's
and
talk
it's
about that.
live? Okay.
I just inquired about Mill River, the high school, but that evidently coincides with our next board meeting, so, yeah. it's difficult.
Oh, on the 18th.
We could
Yeah.
just invite everybody to the board meeting.
But we're gonna be in Timoth.
Oh. Too small.
Well, it would be a good idea if we were here.
No, I know, exactly. Oh, well, okay.
But thank you for that work. Do you have anything else to share with us?
We have a meeting on our next meeting is September 14th at 9 o'clock in the district conference room. And we will be continuing to work on the goals of the committee and the community engagement plan for the board.
Excellent. Good. We'll move to principal updates. Who would like to go first?
Maureen hates to be last.
Okay, Maureen, you could get to go first. We were just talking about Timoth, and we're gonna be there soon.
I hate to be last. I just hate going after Fred.
Oh, okay. We'll make Fred go last. How's that? Okay.
So, not much has happened since we talked to you 2 weeks ago, but we had a very smooth start to the beginning of school. The interview with the Burlington Free Press came out, and that was pretty positive, and they did mention what a forward-thinking district we are. And other than that, the only thing that's happening at this point is the open house on the 25th, which you're all invited to.
Thank you, Maureen. Jody.
Sure. So also a nice smooth beginning of the school year. So good to see all of the kids come back. Everyone grew about 57 inches. Today we had our first harvest of the month. If you guys remember last year, that's when the kids interact with a new vegetable, do a cooking recipe with it, and provide the entire school with a little taste test to get to know local produce. And that was through partnership with Sage. This year we're really working on gearing up our partnerships with Sage and with Shelburne to be more and more a part of our school day. And so that's one great place Sage is helping. Sage is also helping us with our compost right now. So at the moment they're taking it off-site for us to a local farm that can use it, and they're working with us on the possibility of on-site composting. For later in the school year. We just want to make sure that it's done really well, it's done according to Gary's specifications, and it's done in a way that is sustainable in practice as well as environmentally. Tomorrow we have our first all-school assembly of the school year. The fall's big idea of our big ideas of sustainability is community, so we're going to be coming together and talking about our definition of community, what it means to be a community at Shrewsbury Mountain School, and getting excited and ready for 2 weeks from now, which is the Shrewsbury Day Parade, where we'll be marching as a school. It's very fun. That's pretty much all I got for
What time is
right
that meeting? The all
the all school, 8:30 in the morning. You want to come?
I don't know, but I'll try.
Put on the spot.
And when is the parade?
I will try.
Say again?
The parade?
The parade, I believe it starts at 10 a.m., but Shrewsbury Day is an all-day event with lots of exciting things. There's a
that's for
barbecue. That Mill River schools will have a booth there. In the inside, they have booths of all different local organizations.
Okay, so, and the pressing question is, what's the vegetable of the month?
Corn salsa is what they made.
Okay.
Nice.
With corn gleaned from the Vermont Food Bank, who's been super helpful to us. George, it is a pizza potluck on my open school night, just want to let you know. Speaking of food.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, I'll be there.
So that's all I have for now.
Okay,
But
great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Helen?
Now, how many alarms does your salsa have?
It was mild because we were even serving it to pre-K.
Okay.
So let's see, if you call the opening day of school smooth with preventing the lights on Route 7 to not work because we had so many cars dropping off kiddos with our 40 pre-Kers arriving, it was interesting. But they finally have all settled in and they figured out, how to park and get where they need to be to help drop them all off. And we haven't we haven't prevented the lights from doing what they're supposed to do and stopping traffic since that opening day, so that got off rolling, and since then, we're running pretty smooth. Had our ice cream social and served about 180-ish cones and dishes to a lot of people who came to enjoy and get to see their pre-K room and meet their teachers and get settled in. This last week and this week, the teachers are doing in their pods. So the primary pod is K1 and 2, the middle pod is 3rd and 4th, and the older pod is 5 and 6. They've been doing their curriculum nights, and they've been presenting to the families, what are the expectations, what's the curriculum going to be, and daily schedule, how do we do our trailhead with kids moving around and meeting them where they're at. And great presentations by the teachers. It's really fun to watch them own the concept of the trailhead that we're working on. Fun to listen to them. I was just talking with Brian earlier this evening about something I'm really excited about and watching evolve is the Seesaw project that Ann Oz is working on with a bunch of the teachers. And it's a way for kids to have a portfolio online that then can be shared with their families instantly. So even our pre-K teachers are doing it, where they take pictures of kiddos talking about their hopes and dreams for the year, and then parents get to instantly see that. And a lot of them were talking about it tonight at the primary pod curriculum night. So it's fun to see Ann take a nice leadership role with that and get teachers excited about it and helping to create portfolios for all our kids that parents can have quick and easy access to. So all our 40 pre-Kers are there. Very few tears, I have to say, the first week, so that's good. And by 12:30, there was a lot of napping going on downstairs, and it continues to be a lot of napping going on. Pretty tired kids, but all in all, going pretty well.
Thank you. We'll finish elementary with Fred. There you go.
I'll try to tone down my enthusiasm. Great start to the week. All the kids were excited to be back. They were energetic, engaged from day one. Parents were even more happy, I think, to have them back. But the start was very smooth. Walking around by the third day, it seemed like the communities were already developing in each one of the classrooms. It went really well. We had a welcome back barbecue on the Friday. Very well attended. Information for 3, 4, 5, and 6. They all had information times for the parents, and that was fairly well attended as well. We didn't do, kindergarten, preschool, they all got together several times, and then we had a bus ride and more. And so when I said, "Do you want to have information night?" they were like, "Really? We've already talked about 5 times." So they were all ready to go. Our pre-K started out very well. Yeah, there was a little bit of separation anxiety with a few of the kids, but for the most part, it went extremely well. We already have our first scheduled meeting with the TV station, PEG TV, so hopefully we'll get that all rolling, and you guys will see some more episodes on that wonderful station. And we had Carl Deedham come in. He was working with Green Mountain, works with the state on composting, because we're all eventually going to have to do that. And he brought all the material, and our 6th graders got together in a half day and built 2 tumblers to do all of our composting, because we found last year we couldn't turn it in the winter, and we invited a couple of critters that we want to avoid this year. So that went really good, really well. You know when our open house is. We have a night under the stars coming where, grades 3 through 6 spend 3 hours out in darkness and exploring the stars. So we're excited about that. We have some donators for our walking trail, that whole community complex, unsolicited. We're not asking for donations. Some companies stepped up, some individuals stepped up. We're going to share that with you in a formal list about what they did. And if it wasn't for the weather, we might have had that trail done Monday, but Monday it rained. So hopefully within the next couple of weeks we'll have it. And then we're hoping to do a grand opening on our color run weekend. PTO does a color run, this I think maybe our 3rd or 4th year, and it'll be on October 5th. And if we can get to a point with the trail that we're finished, we will have a grand opening of sorts and thank those contributors to the trail then. So looking forward to that.
Great, thank you. Tyler, how are things at the high school?
Can I just add
Oh,
one more
sure.
thing to my report? I stopped by to see Grant this week. He had his knee replaced and he's doing really well. But I bet he'd love to get a short email from a few of you. So he's doing well though.
Oh, good, thank you for sharing that, Maureen. Okay.
To continue the theme of the elementary schools, I'm going into year 5 now at Mill River, and by far none. I mean, the smoothest transition or smoothest opening of school that I've experienced at Mill River. The vibe in the school is fantastic. The kids were engaged. They got right down to business. It's like we never missed a beat. So it's been very positive, very good opening to the school year. Things we have coming up or going on right now are honors music ensembles. We're auditioning yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Let's see what else. We have our open house next week on the 18th. Also, senior information night is coinciding at the same time. So we're talking about college and career readiness with some of our seniors and the path for that for their senior year. On the 14th, we have homecoming. I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but athletic events all day, and then our homecoming dance at night. Let's see what else. We have, really looking a little bit further down the line, something we're also working for the college and career, college readiness really is on October 16th. Again, a little ways out. All of our sophomores and juniors will be taking the PSAT in school. So.
Thank you. Any questions for anybody? Thank you. So we'll move on to central office reports. Dave, do you want to kick that off?
So my report, I'll keep my piece brief. I just want to point out from my written report, recognizing publicly our support staff and teachers of the year, just so that you know that process. Our employees get to nominate their peers for those honors. We recognize 2 members of our support staff and 2 teachers each fall when school begins. There's a super secret anonymous committee of teachers that gets together and analyzes the nominees and makes some decisions and really helps us out in that regard. So this year, on the support staff side, Christine Carlson from Clarendon Elementary and Lois Castonguay, who is our library assistant here at Mill River. And then on the teacher side, Wendy Wentz runs our foundations program, which is based out of Wallingford Elementary. And then Katja Cook is a foreign language teacher here at Mill River. And for the teachers in particular, UVM recognizes and honors outstanding teachers each fall from every SU and district across the state. So it's a couple weeks out. Tammy and I actually are lucky we get invited to go up for that process, and there's a little bit of a reception, and then they say kind words about everybody and take pictures with dignitaries. So it's a cool event overall. I also, last thing I want to point out is if you go to the end of our central office report, I've asked Sean Ruck, our communications coordinator, to provide us with quarterly reports this year, just about the type of work that he's been up to, because it's a world that a lot of us don't necessarily live in or think about. So you've got first report from Sean at the end of this document for your review when you get a chance.
Excellent. Right, Brian.
So transition a little bit from summer work being mostly focused on tech to now we're talking about our instructional coaches and our intervention programs. Those are ramping up now. Excited to have Michelle Farr on board as an instructional coach this year. Phenomenal candidate who some of us know from being at the high school previously. So very excited about working with her this year, and we also have added Pat Bowen as an interventionist this year. We're very excited about her bringing some of her math skills to intervention work. The data that we had shared with the board last year was really about ELA intervention, and we've seen good progress there, but it's nice to be able to start adding math support too, and see how that goes for the year.
Excellent.
There are also some health office goals in there that we've been talking about. We tackled the immunizations last year, and we're ready for the next one.
Good work on that.
Can I just add, we've got Andrew home sick tonight.
I was
We've
gonna
got
say.
Coral at new home with smoke detector issues, and we've got Carrie out of town this evening, so we've got a few absent folks there.
Okay, so then we'll jump right to Gary.
Not really a lot to add to the written report. There's a pretty good detailed set of information in there about where we stand with our larger projects. The only thing that's a little bit different is we might be a day or two farther behind with the roofing work than what we talk about in the report, just because of some recent weather-related issues. But things are still on schedule to be completed very shortly as far as the major projects are concerned. We're still on schedule to get the biomass plant up and running in time for the heating system this year. So I'd be happy to entertain any questions that you might have about things.
No, but I want to give you a congratulations, though, both you and the high school. I mean, my daughter just started here. I came here, was like 2 weeks before school was supposed to start.
Bad idea.
And the amount of materials that was just in the parking lots. I looked at that and I'm like, I have no idea how they're going to start school. You guys seem to do it. It went clean. So just congratulations on getting that done, making a clean opening for the school.
They call that the Pinocchio effect. Middle of the night, people come in and just put it back together.
It's like elves, we have elves. Thank you. Stan, you have anything you need to add to tell us, anything, since you're here?
Not at the moment. I mean, we're still a little bit too early in the year to really have any kind of basis as to where, the overall budget stands. Just at our annual audit, we'll start on the week of September 16th, so we're gearing up for that. As far as the new program goes, we had the first big payroll for August 30th. That went fine without a hitch, so payroll, at least the payroll part seems to be functioning fine, and now we're just concentrating on some of the other areas we haven't, given enough love and attention to, and try to get those things straightened out. We're getting through it.
Excellent, good. Any questions for Stan about anything? Okay, thank you. So we will go to George's favorite part of the program.
Really?
Transact other legal business.
By golly, I thought you were going to say something.
Well, I am, but
would you go first?
If you'd like to go first.
Oh, sure, be happy to.
I don't want to take away your thunder. I know this is your favorite part of the night.
Well, absolutely. Keeps everybody, including myself, on the toes, I guess. What I did want to talk about, a little bit about Stafford, one of my favorite subjects. I serve on the Stafford Advisory Board as a representative from this board. And as I mentioned earlier, when I talked about the vice chair for policy, I might end up being absent for a few days in the near future. And so from that standpoint, I think it would be important to have somebody be a board rep to Stafford. And let me talk to you a little bit about what that entails. First off, there is the advisory board itself, which meets, I think, like 4 times a year, something of that nature. And it's generally an 8 o'clock meeting. And it's at the Dollhouse for those of you that have been to Stafford. And you have kind of a, what do they call it, breakfast that you get in the motel kind of thing. And they talk about issues similar to what we discuss at this board for our district. The other thing that happens is that there are committees involved with the work there. There's a program committee, which is the one that I've always been on. In the program committee, we get to meet once a month, and we talk about various aspects of every program, generally have the teachers come in from each program and tell us what's going on, and quite often we can go and tour the particular program. And we also have sometimes a tough decision of what programs to keep running, or what new ones to start, or what old ones to abandon for whatever reason. There's also a committee dealing with public relations and a committee dealing with finance, of which Dave is on, our superintendent. So all the superintendents in the area are invited to be a member or part of that advisory board. So that's probably the commitment, which is some months it'd be 2 mornings when they have both the advisory committee and advisory board and a committee. So I'd like to see if anybody would like to volunteer. I know that Andy did it for quite a number of years in the past.
Yes.
Would you like to add anything, Andy?
No, you didn't, no, you had a very good summary.
And so, there we are. I did suggest last night that, the one board member that has a direct relationship to some of the programs at Stafford would be our new person that's involved with health occupations, and I'm not just sure. Oh, so if you had any time to consider that, I'm sure you would be welcomed, if that's of any interest to you or anybody else. Don't have to have a decision tonight. But if,
Tomorrow morning would be good.
Yes, tomorrow morning would be good. So there you go. And we have had, I think there's a couple of people from the hospital on that committee right now. So that's it. I'm done with the other
Okay.
legal business.
George can make a very persuasive pitch, Amy.
I'll get back to you.
That's fine.
There's a couple things I wanted to talk about. First is that we had talked about having a meet and greet with our new staff, and we decided that it would be appropriate to do it at the meeting that would be here. So that would be our meeting October 2nd. And I don't know if we want to have a discussion about refreshments, or we'll leave that up to, I think last time they did a very nice job. with
Yeah, we
whatever they put
can
out.
coordinate catering through the food service and could do whatever you like, or we could make it up on our own accord and see what happens. So
Okay.
your call.
And would we like Dave to extend that invitation on the board's behalf? Would you like me to draft the invitation and send it on to Dave I don't have access to email everyone.
Yeah, it would be nice if you did it.
Sure.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay, and if I do it, I'll
And we'll
send
get
it
it.
on to you, and if you can solicit it in
Absolutely.
the way that I cannot, to everybody. So what time are we talking about? What time would work? Because we want to do it before our board meeting. We have a personnel meeting before that board meeting also. So,
We could do it in another month, and after that, if you can't. It might get too rushed, or would the teachers prefer to have it be earlier? Like at
My hunch
4:30?
would be that teachers would probably prefer earlier as opposed to having their evening stretched. So if the board was, I'm just making this up, we have personnel at 6. If the board were willing to do like 5 with the new
I'm
folks.
not
that
here,
gi-
so.
Okay, but that gives an hour to commiserate before.
does that work
moving
for
on.
people? 5 o'clock if we did that?
Sure.
Okay, so then we'll say 5 o'clock. Excellent. That would be great. And the other thing that we wanted to talk about is last meeting, we approved our district goals. And 2 of those goals specifically fall to the board to develop policy and goals regarding to flesh out those goals. And that's the goal of equity and the goal of community involvement, engagement. So what I had hoped to do was to try to get us together for our retreat and work on those things then. And that's proving difficult because we just all have very busy Saturday schedules. The one that came up with the most from people who answered was October 26th. If that works for most of us, I would like to tentatively pencil that in on everyone's schedule for the morning, because we do have some other things that we would like to do. We had discussed, since we've been talking about restorative justice in context of our policy committee, we talked about perhaps getting some instruction on exactly what that is and what that looks like, so that we can make informed decisions regarding policy, because it helps to understand what those things are that we're asking to implement. But getting back to the equity goal and the community engagement goal, what I would like to do is to see if perhaps the more reasonable approach would be to see if there's board members who would like to volunteer to take on spearheading, working on fleshing out those goals and coming back to the board with it, because I just don't think it's practical for all of us to get together as a group of 11 and work through them as much as we'd like to. So if we can get some people who, I don't want to necessarily say a committee, but, you know.
I'd like to interrupt and just mention, my understanding was that we discussed having existing committees, because isn't there an existing
Right.
equity committee? And I know there's an existing community engagement
Well,
committee.
the equity committee is not a board committee, so we're talking about,
Administrative
yeah, it's an administrative
I
committee.
see. Okay.
Yeah. So we were talking
Okay.
about perhaps the board members who are part of that equity committee would like to possibly volunteer, Maria, to,
Sorry.
since John's not here. That if perhaps between the two of you, you might
We
be
will
able
talk.
to coordinate and collaborate.
To be your in-between bubble of board members between
Right,
the-
because we
the
had also
district
wanted
committee
to have the equity, the administrative equity committee come and do a presentation at our next board meeting as to what they're doing, so
I
perhaps.
just talked to Jody about that, and I'm on for doing that with her at the
Excellent.
next board meeting.
Good, because
So
you were
could-
nominated, so that's good.
Sorry?
John can't be here for the next one.
No, I know, he
Yeah.
can't be there, so I'm.
No, we think that would be good. So if you wouldn't mind maybe coordinating with John and working on that equity goal and the fleshing out of that in the context of and then I hate to say it, but it would be the community engagement committee, if you guys could begin to work with, I really want, because part of that is a community engagement plan, part of that goal. But if you can start to work on that, and then perhaps if at the retreat on the 26th, we could bring what you've done to the, or you're not going to be here.
I'm
for
not
that.
going to be there, and I'm sort of part of both of those, so I'm.
Yeah.
And do you mind if I just weigh in for a moment? Jody and I and Andrew, who are also on that equity group, were having some conversations earlier about, what would that process look like? What could that look like? And so the way they were envisioning the equity group being able to thrive with that work is find existing policies in other places, look at the working definition that
Right.
we'll be working from, identify priorities that are really important to us, are really important in Vermont, et cetera, and essentially create a menu of valid things that then can be handed to the board policy committee, which actually does that work, right?
Right.
The work of putting together policy and drafting
Right.
it and creating it. So definitely some understanding and interest on that part in doing that type of work.
Yep. That sounds good. So if we can do that. And then if there's anyone else on the board who wants to jump in to help flesh out those goals with those groups, please, do so.
And if any board members know of folks in the community who are interested in participating, specifically in community engagement, because we've reached out to some people, but we're really interested in having community partners.
I think that that's an important.
Right.
Have you found people from each town or not yet?
No, not yet.
We
We're
do
working-
have one person from Shrewsbury, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so who's actually part of the group?
Correct.
Amy Thomas.
Okay, good. So I would extend then therefore an open invitation to our community members, anyone who would be interested in being involved with that discussion with regard to the district goal of community engagement. Please reach out to Maria or Liz or your Amy, and or you can certainly reach out to me and I will send you on to them. But that assistance would be helpful because we'd like to get those going. We know our leadership teams are working very hard on the rest of the goals and getting some things in place to flesh them out and getting some evaluations and standards and things. So we'd like to be able to do the same. But can we pencil in the morning of October 26th for right now on calendars for a retreat? And this way, I know as we get closer to the holidays, our time is going to be even more, occupied. But I'd like to get one retreat in the fall, at least. So, other than that, I have nothing else. Does anyone else have anything else?
Would that be here?
Yes. I would assume that we would do it here. That seemed to work
Just book the
well.
conference
Yeah,
room, yep.
in the conference room.
I had a quick question for Brian. You were talking about the immunization program earlier, and I've been hearing a lot of, on folks resisting the notion of immunization. Have we seen any of that in our district?
Nothing that we haven't been able to handle. We have not had to exclude a kiddo from school, which ultimately is what happens. If they don't fill out the religious exemption, which is the only exemption that's available to folks in Vermont now, then we exclude them from school.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to agenda building then. So we have the equity committee doing a presentation.
Yep.
We'll have a student presentation from Timoth?
We'll have a
Or-
Timoth presentation, whatever
Timoth
form that will
presentation,
take.
okay. And I have a request that was brought to me by Heather Kent, for those of you who were just in personnel or in policy. Heather's part of the United Way, and they would like to do a brief 10-minute presentation to the board to explain what the United Way offers in the way of assisting our students and what's available in the community that could be partnership-wise. So she asked for 10 minutes of our time at the next meeting, and I offered to allow them to come and do that, if that is good with everybody.
We'll also have some first readings of policies. F9 transportation, G11 acceptable use, and a draft commitment to educational equity policy that came out of the meeting yesterday.
Excellent.
And I'm sure that VJ is going to volunteer to have that ready by then.
We'll be squared away. Brian's been messing with it. BJ will sign off on it. We'll be good to go.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
No.
Maybe
I'm
you're
just
not.
picking on you.
I deserve it.
Hold on, I have it right here. Here you go.
It's one sentence. Probably had it written.
Do we have any update on our student reps and how that program is?
Tyler.
Yeah, I have a meeting with the senior class tomorrow. I would like to put that out there to them, and also I have a meeting with the junior class on, I believe next Wednesday, either next Wednesday or Thursday. I would like to again put that out to them and see what interest there is. And obviously there'll be a application, please write us a letter, cover letter, that kind of thing, as to why they would like to be a part of that, and then we can review it with, anyone from the board would like to review those with me, and go from there.
I make just a question. Would that time that they participate in the board and do that count for their voluntary or volunteering?
It could. It could.
Just wondering if that's a sweetener.
It could. Yeah, I mean, it's, we can, I think we'd be pretty flexible in any of those things, so yeah, I think we could figure that out.
And I would appreciate it if you could stress to them that we really appreciate having the student board member here, members. I mean, we value that, so it's not just, somebody that's got to come and sit through one of our meetings,
Right.
but we would really appreciate their input.
Yeah,
It's
and
been valuable.
Len and I discussed last year even the possibility of maybe even 3 where it's a rotation basis, just because kids are busy after school. I mean, between work and athletics and extracurriculars, so or after school. So I mean, it could be something to that effect as well.
That would be great. I think that whatever form it may take, that would get kids here, I think that would be probably a good thing for us, because we really value their input, so. Thank you. We don't have any need for an executive session,
Not that I'm aware of.
so motion to adjourn?
Can I ask one question before we adjourn? Sorry, guys. There is a regional,
The VSBA meeting?
God.
yeah, there's a
Sorry.
regional.
I'm supposed to say that. No, I have the date.
Regional meeting.
Yep.
Of the Vermont School Boards Association, and it is
5:30 on
September
the
10th. Yes, September 10th, 5:30. You do have to register.
It's at Otter Valley.
This is making me nuts. I can't scroll down.
It is at
I have
Otter
a
Valley.
very inexpensive Chromebook. It is at Otter Valley. I'm just curious if anyone's intending to go.
I am.
I am too.
Seeing
too.
as- Yeah.
Okay,
Sort of.
that's all I wanted to
Yes.
know. Thank you. I
But
move
it
to
would be
adjourn.
great if other people came.
Yes.
Because that's when they vote on the vote?
They give you dinner.
Yes, yeah. I've been there before.
They talk about the resolutions that are coming up in November at the, the annual meeting.
It's definitely interesting if you
Yeah.
have the time to
Right.
be able to go, if it fits
Okay.
in your schedule. Yes, thanks for that reminder.
Yes.
Yes,
And
thank
okay,
you.
I will
I
move
wrote
to.
myself a note to say something, and then I didn't do it. But
Okay,
don't tell
Then-
Carrie.
we can adjourn? Motion to adjourn?
7:58.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay.